The permeation of culinary images in China's social media and live streaming platforms epitomizes a visual representation as well as a sensual performance of Chinese affluence since 2015. More than just a new rhetoric, Chinese affluence is now loved and more specifically feasted upon by the Chinese in the everyday. Conspicuous consumption of food, part and parcel of the xuanfu practice, which literally means display of riches, is symptomatic of China's phenomenal rise of economic power and its entering late capitalism. Excessive eating constitutes a media spectacle in cyberspace, voraciously consumed by Chinese netizens, who are mostly unaware of their complicity in consumer nationalism and unethical consumption. Live streaming platform mediates such mass-scale grassroots production, circulation, and commodification of binge eating, thanks to its self-enterprising users. In 2012, China Central Television (CCTV) aired the first season of the food documentary series A Bite of China, 舌尖上的中国, which so far has been received with enthusiasm by Chinese audience home and overseas. Besides revealing heterogeneous traditions of Chinese cuisine, the narrated documentary communicates a new message to the world. That is, people from all parts of China have been able to consume an abundance and variety of quality food. Roland Barthes, in his acclaimed essay in Mythologies, defines food as a communicative sign, which is not just an indicator of a set of more or less conscious motivations, but that it is a real sign, perhaps the functional unit of the system of communication. With the camera zooming in on images of stylized and mouth-watering food, A Bite of China invites gazers on Chinese affluence via the communicative sign of food. Later in the same year, the then newly inaugurated paramount leader of China, Xi Jinping, made his first official speech about the Chinese dream, which is about the collective effort of Chinese people to revitalize their great nation and to achieve a happy and prosperous life for their own. The Chinese dream is realized step by step, or bite by bite in the everyday. With the same celebratory tone and visceral effect, Chinese eating broadcast seems to be a grassroots counterpart to A Bite of China, contributing to the myth-making of contemporary Chinese affluence. Conspicuous consumption, defined by the economist Torsten Veblen as the luxury and excessive consumption of the nouveau riche or the so-called leisure class, is a public display of economic prestige and social status. Contrary to the ethical caution against consumerism, the affluent class of Chinese indulge themselves in a collective competition of xuanfu. At the same time, expressions of individual wealth and purchasing power are indicative of the nation's economic strength. The formation of a new collective identity of the Chinese as neoliberal consumers evidences China's transformation into an affluent post-industrial society. In Jean Baudrillard's term, China's consumer revolution unfolds concomitantly with the revolution of affluence, which is predicated on social restructurings on both the material and psychological levels. Chinese eating broadcasters, through showing off the gratification of food consumption, not only identify with the emergent discourse of Chinese affluence, but also perform Chinese affluence on the individual level. As a matter of fact, their active participation in displaying material wealth and gastronomical delight is part and parcel of Chinese affluence. In an effort to further tease out the cultural and ethical implications of Chinese eating broadcast, let's examine the live streaming representation and performance appetite at the intersection of gender and media. That is to interrogate the collusion of gender politics and live streaming economy. The case of female eating broadcast illuminates Thomas Lamar's notion of platformativity, which addresses the infra-individual interaction between platform and human and individual and collective, a kind of performativity via platforms. Subverting the gender code of female modesty and altruism, women's binge eating in the public space of live streaming platforms pronounces a transgressive statement of female pleasure and self-fulfillment. However, interfacing human with media, body with digital platform, eating broadcast abets the digitalization and commodification of female body and appetite in China's neoliberal economy. The conflicting ideologies endorsed by female eating broadcast are further confounded by the visual representations of the female body, which conforms to the ideal of female slenderness, an oppressive apparatus that disciplines femininity. For example, the first celebrity female eating broadcaster, internet influencer Mi Zijun, most of her live streaming is shot with a high angle, as shown on this screenshot. The camera is placed up eye level to create a frame that looks down on her. The visual effect is to make cakes on the table, which placed closer to the camera, look bigger, and at the same time to make Mi Zijun, who is sitting behind the table, appear smaller. The incongruous image of binge-eating woman with a slim body elicits a visual shock for viewers. How can she eat so much and still stay thin? The high-angle shot enhances this visual shock by exaggerating the mass of food Mi Zijun manages to eat for one meal on the one hand, and conferring paterness on her body on the other. Here, this effect is further exaggerated by Mi Zijun sitting on the floor instead of on the sofa that is behind her. Hiding her body behind and below the table, she appears tinier in front of a table full of cakes. The visual mismatch between the slender female body and the woman's enormous appetite is capitalized upon for its shock value. Whereas consumer society is fueled by proliferation of desires, the rigid governing over women's bodies is premised on self-discipline and self-defense against such desires. The case of hungry women broadcaster further aggravates the contradictory situation. The unreserved celebration of consumer culture and social affluence mandates women's submission to desires and temptations, such as mouth-watering food. But it is still a cultural imperative for women to control their appetite and maintain a slender body type. With the contradiction of consumer society unresolved, the physiology and metabolism of female broadcasters' body is mystified. Their bodies must have some abnormal features to function in this exceptional way, or they're suspected of being bulimic by some viewers, who believe that bulimia is the only logical explanation for the noticeable mismatch between the size of their body and that of their appetite. In this sense, the actual and the virtual worlds converge on the discipline and pathologizing of the female body. That should prompt more discussions about the ethics of the eating live streaming economy. In the end, I want to reiterate my concern regarding the ethical controversies of Chinese eating broadcast. Its unreserved celebration of contemporary affluence dismisses the history of hunger as well as the current social problem of poverty. In addition, by making women's overeating a media spectacle, it disguises women's struggle with the tyranny of hunger in the form of culturally coerced self-starvation.